Hi Frippo friends, my name is Ali Taylor and I'm really happy to be with you today, taking you through a movement mastery session for the squat. What do you need to master about the squat? Well, over the next 10 minutes, I'd like you to come along with me on a skill development journey where we throw loads of different variables at a squat in order to do two things: improve range of motion and smooth the edges out so that your squat feels better. Why would we do this? Well, if you think about any goal, hypertrophy, strength, functional activities of daily living, improving range of motion for a sport or gymnastics, or just because somebody's a little bit tight in an area, if you can improve range of motion and apply it to a movement such as a squat, which let's face it, we use in pretty much every session that we ever give somebody, whether it's in the gym or whether it's in a group exercise setting. If we can improve somebody's range of motion at their hips, knees and ankles so that they can get lower, you're going to expose their muscle tissue, the glutes, the glute medius, the glute minimus, to more overall tension. That means more motor units are going to be recruited across the muscle. And if we look at a goal such as hypertrophy, we know that we need to elicit high motor unit threshold excitation. And we don't want to do that in a little bit of the muscle because that's not great for getting a goal or growing muscle. We want to try and excite those motor units across the whole of the muscle. So the more range you can find, the more motor units are going to be switched on. And that is what's going to get somebody to their goal so much quicker. If you think about range of motion, if we can create range of motion at a joint, then we're going to be able to get people more successfully into positions and just feeling better. So this sort of skill development cluster around a movement such as a squat is able to be applied to a lot of other exercises. I'm just giving you a concept. So please stop what you're doing, get up and do this with me so that you can really feel the experience for yourself. I need 10 minutes of your time and that's it. See you on the other side. All right, so the first thing you're going to do is rate your squat out of 10. You are rating it on depth and smoothness, so ease of motion. So if you start with whatever squat position you want, and we are all different, there is no perfect squat stance. We have different lever lengths, different joint sizes, different ways we are made. So I'm not going to tell you how wide your feet should be, how turned out. That's your body's decision. But once you've found that, do some squats. And I'd like you to just think, how low are you going? If I show you sideways right now without forcing it, and I don't want you to force it, this is how low I can go. So I would say I'm stopping just a little bit above my knees. I know when I'm good and really ready for this sort of movement, I can get much lower. So I'll be looking to try and go below my knees. I'm going to rate my squat right now about 6.5 in terms of depth, and it feels a bit clunky. It feels like it could be a lot smoother. So keep your number here in your head. When we get to the end of these next 10 little movements, you're going to re-rate it, okay? Let's get going. Do this along with me and I promise your squat will feel better at the end. Start with your feet in a neutral-ish stance, and what we're going to do is take a small step forwards as if you're on a train track, but turn your foot into what we call a pigeon foot, or a little baby T shape, and you're going to drop down into a squat, and you're going to just alternate side to side. We're moving quite quickly with this, so we're not going to get stuck, we're not going to wiggle around and hold a stretch. I just want you to drop till your body says stop, and then almost ricochet back out of it, so that you are creating elasticity in your tissues. Let me show you side on. I go straight ahead, I toe my foot in, and I am letting my hip turn out to the side a little bit. So what you should feel is if you were to put your hand on your outer hip, you would feel it expand under your fingers, and that's the muscle working, that's the muscle loading. And what we're trying to do is actually load as much tissue as possible, because when we turn our foot in, we actually engage much more of the glute med and the glute min than when we have our feet neutral. So what we're trying to do is expose it to greater range of motion. so that when we come back to our neutral stance, it gives us more. Okay, little change, step to the side, same thing. You're going to turn your toe in, shove your hip out. So think butt goes out, really shift, really push. It's not a big step. If you step really big, it's hard to get that foot to turn in, and it's hard to get the depth. So just go small and think down, out. Almost like you're closing a car door with your hip as you've got shopping in your hands. So you go boom, close. And in terms of depth, think bench. You know those benches from primary school, really low, designed for 4-year-olds? Try and get your hip down to a low bench, as if you're going to park one cheek down on that bench. We're going to do a couple more. And then we're going to do one more change. I'm going to ask you to turn your foot behind you and turn it out now. Drop down, keeping your feet flat. So you step behind, you open the foot out, so it points to, let's say, 10 o'clock or 2 o'clock, depending which way you're going. And get the heel flat. And what you should feel is that your soleus, your calf, gets a stretch. And we're doing this because for some people, the limiting factor in depth in a squat is their calf and soleus as well as the hips. So we're basically greasing that ankle joint complex, getting dorsiflexion in the ankle, because if you've got good dorsiflexion in the ankle, as well as good flexion in the hips, guess what? Your range is going to improve. And we're doing both those things at the same time here. So I like to think of this as my ballet dancer move. I step behind, I curtsy, I say thank you very much, I take my flowers. My imagination runs wild sometimes. Do 2 more. And 1 more. Okay, and then we're going to change. Bring your feet to a slightly wider position than neutral, just a smidge wider than neutral. Toe in, so both feet are now in this pigeon stance. Squat, reach your hands to one foot, through the center, and then to the other foot. Now this is going to feel weird. Most of us don't squat with our feet in like this very often, but it's really good, and you should feel those hips again. Those hips are working in a different way. That internal rotation at the foot is giving our glute more exposure to range. It's giving our ankles more exposure to dorsiflexion with internal rotation, with inversion at the ankle, and with adduction at the ankle, all things that are good for improving our mobility in a squat. And if you're thinking, oh my goodness, my knees are going into like a valgus position, I don't want you to worry, because actually, if you think back to who said never let your knees go in front of your toes or never let your knees knock in, they probably were repeating that from somebody else. And the evidence we have shows that a knee valgus does not increase your risk of a knee injury, is probably not linked to a weak hip, and is just an anatomical fact of life. And actually, if you think about life and sport, we'll often go into a knee valgus position to do various things. So, if an injury happens, which we know it does when a joint's capacity is exceeded, because you've taken it too far, too quickly, or too soon to a range it's not used to, that's when you get injured. So if we thoughtfully, carefully train knee valgus and other positions that we might have been told not to do in the gym, then wouldn't you say that that risk of injury goes down? Because I would, because if you're training ranges that we do get exposed to in life and sport, we don't train them in the gym, that's where your biggest risk would be, I would say, not in a little bit of controlled knee movement, which is very healthy. We're going to do 1 more. Okay, now turn out. We're going to do the same thing. So you're going to reach 1 foot, center, and the other foot. And right now, your whole body should be going, woohoo, I like this. I can get so much lower. Good, you should be able to, because we've now externally rotated your hips. And this is an easier position to get depth in, because our hips rotate out generally a lot more than they rotate in. So I'd like you to now try and push your hip to one side and get your fingers to the floor if that's accessible for you. If it's not, don't worry, just go as low as you can. But if you can get your fingers to the floor, do. And if you need to tip your body over a little bit, do. So if I show you from the side, you'll see I'm allowing myself a little bit of movement at my back. Because if I was to drop my keys or pick up a 3-year-old that's having a tantrum on the floor, I am going to need to use my back to grab them. I'm not going to be able to do that with a neutral spine. So neutral spine, again, something that perhaps has more of a grey area than the black and white we might be used to. And certainly as I've not got a heavy barbell on my back, a little bit of spinal flexion, very healthy. Gonna do a couple more. Do you feel like you're getting a bit lower? Okay, now don't hate me, this next one is gonna up the ante. Drop down, keep the feet wide, stay there. You're gonna flex side to side. So reach one way, gonna do 9, 8, drop as low as you can, 7, 6, let your weight shift, 5, 4, extend right the way through the fingers, 2, 1, and then come out before your legs catch fire. Woo, give them a shake. That should have burned a little bit. If it didn't, we need to have words after this. Go back to your wide stance. Same thing, but we're gonna twist. So drop, arms forward. Now rotate and let your hips shift. Whoops, is she falling over? Side to side a little bit. Reach as far as you can with your arms. Stay in your legs. You're gonna do 2 more and then come out. Whew. Do you feel those lighting up? Okay, give them a shake. Bring your feet narrow. Literally seal your ankles, your knees, your inner thighs. We're gonna squat again, reach side to side. Narrow stance usually lets us get lower. I can let my back come forwards to help me get down. And you're trying to get those fingers either side of your feet. Sometimes I like to give clients bean bags or things like that to pick up from behind them and in front of them and out to the side, because it all changes that angle that the joint is having to work at. And the more variety you give a joint, the more variety you're giving the muscle. The more variety you give a muscle, the stronger it's going to be at responding to scenarios thrown at it, whether they're in life or whether they're in the gym. And how awesome do you think that's going to be for so many of our clients' goals? Okay, you're going to do 2 more. And then we're going to come all the way down and you're going to do these lateral flexes again. You're going to do 10. Are you ready? Drop as low as you can and then go. 10. 9. Now notice how your hips have more motion. You're going to be able to really shove them out to the side. Keep your chest facing forward. 7, 8, 9, 10. Come out of it. Give them a shake. Not quite as burny as the wide one, is it? Come back down and we're going to twist. So seal the deal. Drop and rotate. One way, other way. Squeeze your knees together. Compress, compress. Drop your butt, keep the chest up. Feels a little bit like you're sliding down skis on a mountain slope, doesn't it? Kind of like skiing. This, by the way, awesome skiing exercise. Far better than an isometric wall squat. Looks a bit more like skiing. And come up. Whew. Well done. Okay, give the legs a shake. That's our entire skill cluster. So what do you say? We retry our squat. So set your squat stance, go ahead and drop into your squat and see how it feels. If I show you side on, prepare to be impressed. I can drop so much lower, so much more comfortably. And if you're dropping down or watching my squat and thinking, oh, your butt's tucking under a little bit at the bottom, that's normal anatomy when you squat low. So butt winks don't mean that you're doing a squat wrong. It just means you've got low. And if you look at any picture of a cave person or someone in Asia who still do arse to grass squatting, you'll see that their bottom is a tucked under because that's where the pelvis goes when you drop that low. What are you rating your squat now? I'm going to rate mine as about a 9. So definitely big improvement from the beginning. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you feel that your squat improved significantly in that really short amount of time that we just went through those skill clusters. Now know that you can do this with almost any exercise. You can build improved performance by doing a little cluster of variability around joint range of motion for pretty much everything. Isn't that exciting? How much could you help your clients by doing that? I'll see you next time.